I am Tom at Just One Pack, and this is AC on the short Alpha Clash podcast, where I talk all things Alpha Clash on my way to work. And two topics for today. One is spoiler season. We're in the quote-unquote blue patch, the blue set, and we have to talk about the board game. But so let's go. Let's dig in. So first on, let's grab the board game first. The board game is live on Gamefound now. It is, for what I can see, doing quite well. But the more interesting part really, is that both the tiers and the add-ons are being revealed, or have been revealed now to it. Now the tiers we sort of knew before, but the add-ons I at least hadn't seen before I went to support it. So the tiers are the three basic tier, 3 tiers: basic, deluxe, and all-inclusive. And all-inclusive is quite literally, I think, all-inclusive. You get a lot of the add-ons when you get the all-inclusive. So the basic one just gives you game. The deluxe division, more or less, in general terms, the basic gives you the game. The deluxe edition gives you the game, but instead of acrylic standees, you get these ink-washed minis. If you're into that, go for that. Personally, I prefer the standees. That's a personal preference. The deluxe edition gives you both of those, so worth giving a mention. Also, some interesting things in the deluxe edition, which is also interesting because it comes out of the add-ons. There is a Harbinger expansion, and I think someone said the first expansion. I can see how you can make more expansion for this, but there's the first edition where you get the Harbingers. We already know: conquest, death, pestilence, and war. Those 4 are coming in a sort of an expansion box. There's an expansion to it. They're in that, and the only way to get that expansion is the Gamefound, the Gamefound campaign. So I was personally intrigued. I get, if you don't think that's special, then fine. Sorry, I had to get a sip of coffee there. I think it's interesting. The fact that it's only available on the Gamefound is sort of a FOMO thing, but sure. I thought it was interesting either way. But saying that it's only available through the Gamefound also sort of indicates that they might want to go out and have these games in game stores. I have yet to see the game in physical stores, but then again, there aren't many physical stores for card games, for specialized card games like this, around my area. So, and what I have is predominantly Magic and Magic. So it will get there eventually, but I'll be happy to see the board game in an online store at some point as well. Another add-on that's interesting and is in and not in the all-inclusive, at least I don't think it's in the all-inclusive, is that if you are a small-time game store and you sort of want to try this out, there is an opportunity to buy, I think they called it retail bundles, where you get 6 games fairly cheap. They did the same with the comic books, where you can buy an additional bundle. Comic books are a lot cheaper than board games, so I went for the comic book. I'm not going to buy extra of the board game. I'm sorry. That is, I'm going to save a little for buying Genesis Returns once they come out. And of course, there's a playmat. There are even card sleeves, interesting, which you can get. So loads of stuff to put in your basket when you're there. You can, if you really like just one type of the 4 classes in the board game as minis, you can do that too. So you can pick and choose whatever you like, or you can just buy the all-inclusive. Anyway, so enough about the board game. Go find it on Gamefound. Go have a look at the different contenders in that game, knowing full well that those will come into play in, I think, if we don't already have them, they are going to be in set 7 to 9, and we're at set 4 now. So interesting things are going to happen. They sort of talked about the first 6 set being one block. I'm gonna have a guess here. Those are for getting Earth done and ready. So the Clash on Earth is sort of being concluded in those 6 sets, and then we could go on to a different gambit somewhere else in the universe. That's my guess, and taking from that there are, as far as I saw, no or almost no contenders from Earth in the board game. That is that hasn't been revealed. That sort of supports that theory, at least to me. Anyway, enough of the board game. I want to talk about spoilers as well. So, spoilers for the card game. As I mentioned, we're in the blue season, blue period, whatever, which means there need to be support for Genesis and something else. So what we've seen the other colours is that there's been support for the contenders in the set, but also support for other strategies that needed a little bit extra to work. And one of the things that have come up is there is support for Genesis. His whole using the resource zone as an extension of your hand is, I thought it was bonkers when it first came out, and now he got support for it through other cards. It's not just him being able to do that. It is also supported in cards, which sort of didn't need. We had a clash buff, and I blank on the name right now, which takes an attacking or obstructing card, clash card, and put it into the owner's resource zone. And we were talking about that, and I mentioned this on the Discord channel. You could, with 2 Havens, Bountiful Collectors, and one of these clash buffs, if you play Genesis as your contender, you can get, I think it was 9 resources, starting on turn 5. You haven't really played anything big, you're not really doing anything else, but if you play a resource turn, a resource then play a heaven, then you're already a 3. That is a classic start. The thing is, though, that if you attack without heaven, she may or may not die, but she's out there. If you do the next round, you play a resource, then you have round 3 you have 4 resources. 2 to play a heaven, and 2 to play the clash buffs, which increase you to 6 resources. So turn 4, you have, playing a resource extra, you have 7 resources. So at turn 5, you have an Alpha Asta out, which is bonkers. Yeah, so that support. The thing is, you can, when you play that clash card, that clash buff on Haven, she does not go away. Her enter ability is already done, so she's sort of done her thing. But you can then send her to your resource zone and play her again, which means that with only two cards, you sort of get her twice, which is bonkers in terms of ramp. Now, that to me tells me that Genesis want to play some huge big dudes, not really going wide, but going really tall, and really stomp his opponents with big dudes. And he thought again, and then out came shocking revelation, a new card, I think it was a basic action. I did not know myself that. It costs an arm and a leg. It costs 6, but what it does is that it forces all your opponents, or your opponent, to discard any clash cards they have in the battlefield more than you. Now, if your side has 0 or just a single big dude, that means you're clearing their boards, which is brilliant if you're the one going big and everyone else is going wide. So something like War is really struggling with that. Moxie a little less, but something like War or Pestilence will really struggle with getting all that stuff removed. It costs 6, so it's not cheap. However, there are ways to cheat that a little bit. Because one of the other blue cards that came out was Rooftop Tower. That is a clash ground that reduces the cost of anything you play with 1 blue if it's not from your hand, which could be your resource zone. So this don't trigger these support for an already strong strategy, and that's interesting or worrying depending on whether you intend to play Genesis. The other blue cards, and I'm going to be quick because time is ticking. The other blue cards are support for LINN and her Diminish strategy, or that Diminish strategy that she started. So I have tried to make a LINN deck with Diminish, but it's not really functioning. There isn't quite enough momentum and power in it. So I abandoned that idea. And now I might want to have to go back and look at it once Genesis returns its out, and we open a box or two. There are new, because there is new support for the Diminish strategy in that. One of the more fun ones is a trap. A clash card, a 1/1 clash card that sort of leans into this. It has 2 abilities: trigger enter and trigger defeat, and in both cases target player diminishes 1 card, and only costs 1. So your opponent is 2 cards down from that, from 1 resource in your part, which is fun. It's not really strong, it's just fun that you sort of annoy them, taking away their options. But more interestingly, the other trap that came out is called Diminish. It's a 2-cost trap, and it's a counter play. And when you counter a play, you pay the 2, you spring the trap, but the target opponent diminishes X, where X is the cost of the card entering. Meaning that if you play it late game, Pestilence have some of these traps as well. When you play them late game, the effect or the efficiency of them is so much bigger or so much more powerful than if you play them early game. Playing to counterplay something at the cost of 3 rather than something at the cost of 6 or 7 is significant, and only costs 2. So if you are running, I think that will be a staple in the Diminish deck. You have to have that trap, because late game, the first traps we got was sort of not really useful late game. Now we get traps that are useful late game, but you can set it early and sort of convince your opponent that that's a dead trap that will never really spring unless they do something minor. So support for that is interesting. There is also another trap called sacrificial strength. I'm going to say that, and someone can correct me. At a cost 0, you diminish 2 cards. I think 1 card. You diminish a card, and then you sacrifice a clash card, and then you ready 2 resources. It's on a counter play, and we were having a chat on whether you could counterplay, use the resources to do another counterplay. I don't think it works like that. You have to stack them there, but a trap that leans into a trap that's interesting because it's a free trap, and it sort of readies 2 resources in your part. So if you want a different action than the clash card you got out, you can sort of sacrifice that and get resources for something bigger, like a trap, for instance, like another trap. So there is interesting cards in this, interesting strategies in that the Diminish is working better, interesting, and whatever support Genesis is getting at this point, and also more relevant for traps. I really like traps. They're not really an extension of the hand. It's just you have to worry every time your opponent puts down a trap. Anyway, that is all I want to talk about. Go support the Gamefound for the board game. It looks really interesting, so I can't wait to get it in my hands. But first, the comic book's on the way, and Genesis returns in November. So let's talk before then, though. Talk to you then. Bye.